As you know, Inner Health, we're in the space of treatment, addiction, mental health treatment. We have a lot of different types of professionals that interact with our patients, but the main thrust of it is therapy. Usually master's or PhD level therapists. We have physicians involved, addiction psychiatrists, nurses. What is a life coach? What is it that you're doing?
With this podcast, what we're trying to do is have real, authentic discourse.
All right. Ashley Rehab, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. It's good to have you here. I've known you for a few years now.
Yeah, time flies.
It does. I'm glad to have you on our podcast. So this is our podcast called Treatment Redefined. We just launched it this year.
Awesome.
And one of our main objectives is to have authentic, real conversations around the treatment industry, addiction treatment, mental health treatment, behavioral health in general. And we're trying to have thought leaders, experts, professionals in various aspects of the field come on and have some good conversation.
I love it. I think this is such an important topic.
I do too. I've been really excited to have you on because there's a lot to talk about in this. And I think we're going to maybe clear the air a little bit on what it is being a life coach, and then we'll probably meander into how does it really work within, say, the addiction field, because you know our space pretty well. So I thought just by way of background, maybe just give people a feel for who you are, where you're from, and maybe how you got into this.
Well, I grew up in Dallas, so I'm a Texas native, and I always knew that in some capacity I was going to be helping people. I just didn't know what exactly that looked like. So very long story short, I spent 17 years in corporate America, hated every day of it, and knew I had to get out.
What were you doing?
I started out in advertising, and then I was an executive assistant, and I worked at really phenomenal companies, like Fortune 500 companies, places people wanted to be at. I was great at the job because I'm super type A and organized, but I had no passion for it whatsoever. So I knew that it was very important to me to live a purposeful life, a passion-filled life. So I went on my own journey of self-discovery. I went to therapy, went to life coaching, ultimately found this path for me and never looked back. It was a big career pivot for me to go to school on side of working a full-time job and then start my coaching business. But I am so glad I did.
So how many years ago was this that you made this decision that you're going to make this pivot?
So it was in 2018 that I really decided to make the pivot, and that's when I went back to school. And so I started coaching on the side of my full-time job in 2019 with practice clients. 2020 got much more serious about everything once all of my schooling was done. And then in January of 22, I left corporate America to do this full time. Okay.
So give me a feel for what is the schooling that you went back for to get you aligned with what you're doing?
I did an advanced life coaching certification. So it was very intense. I had to do it online and night school since I was working an 8-to-5 job. But yeah, it was a lot. We learned a lot. I mean, it was papers, it was studying, it was practice clients, it was mentor coaching. It was 4-hour freezing cold proctored tests. It was so much fun. But I learned a lot. And so I'm very glad that I did it because I do feel like it really equipped me to serve my clients well. It was just, kind of a lot to do on side of a full-time job.
For sure. Absolutely. A lot to balance there.
A lot to balance.
Okay. So give us a feel for what is a life coach? As you know, Inner Health, we're in the space of treatment, addiction, mental health treatment. We have a lot of different types of professionals that interact with our patients, but the main thrust of it is therapy. Usually master's or PhD level therapists. We have physicians involved, addiction psychiatrists, nurses. What is a life coach? What is it that you're doing?
I like to say that life coaching is a cousin of therapy. So therapy takes you back to your past to help you manage your present, and life coaching meets you where you are and helps you to move forward. Life coaching is also non-clinical. So whereas therapy will diagnose and treat, life coaching is more forward-focused, more goal-oriented, mindset shifts, uncovering passion and purpose. So a lot of my clients will see me and a therapist at the same time, or they will see me after they've graduated therapy, they've moved through their trauma, and then they're left kind of saying, now what? Specifically in the realm of addiction, what I have found is actually a lot of people who are struggling with substance abuse seek me out first because they're wanting to uncover their passion and purpose, and they think maybe that will help them feel better, help them kind of get a handle on things. So I am able to assess basically when and if we need to bring in a therapist or a psychiatrist, which happens when the person is stuck at the point of trauma and is unable to move forward.
Okay.
So coaching and therapy are really, in my opinion, like a perfect mix here. Whether you do them together, whether you do one and then the others, when it comes to addiction, you're usually going to have all of the pieces to this puzzle so that you can be the healthiest version of yourself. Outside of the realm of addiction, some people will just do the life coaching, and that is perfect for them. It really just depends, and I am one of the more ethical people you will ever meet. So the minute it becomes evident that someone needs a higher level of care, I am bringing that up to them.
Yep. So in our space, in the addiction space, it takes time for people to get better.
It does.
I mean, you know this. You and I have talked about this over coffee before. It's a journey. Sometimes patients and families don't want to hear that always on the front end, that it takes time, and there's a process, and there's maybe you're at a higher acuity level, going through residential treatment, coming out, going into outpatient, continuing that recovery, learning those principles. And when we first started Inner Health, it was after the first year, it was pretty obvious that no matter how good a job we do on campus, per se, say a 4 to 6 plus week course of intensive residential treatment, it's really just the beginning.
It is.
And now you're shifting back home or back to your life, back to a lot of the stressors that you have. And you've got to integrate back in and learn a lot of those life skills, because unfortunately, life, it just kind of went on pause for a while you were in treatment, but it's going to still be there when you get out. And so, people use the term continuum of care, being able to stay and not, involved and connected. Our outpatient, I feel like, serves a lot of that role. However, there's a lot of time in communication and touch points that I feel like life coaches can really fill a void in there. Outside, because once you're out of residential, which is a safe 24-hour environment, you're now coming to appointments maybe 3 times a week if you're doing intensive groups and seeing your doctor and your therapist.
Right.
But that's a big step down. And having somebody there outside of just maybe normal business hours, or the ability to just kind of help goal set, orient. I've always been intrigued by the idea of having, long-term recovery management being filled more with life coaching.
I think that it's really the perfect time to start seeing a life coach, because when they're at the ranch, they're getting a lot of trauma work done. So they're clearing a lot out of the way that has dictated their day-to-day life for years and years and years in most cases. So then when they re-enter the world, the way that they were operating prior to the ranch doesn't work anymore. So they find themselves saying, well, what do I do now? Like, yeah, I feel better. I want to maintain this lifestyle, but I have all this time in my day where I used to be using, or I have all this time in the day where I used to be just zoning out or engaging in unhealthy activities, and I want to feel better, and I want to maybe have healthier friends, healthier habits. What does that look like for me? And since they have worked through the trauma, a lot of their identity has shifted.
Absolutely.
So they're now saying, who am I now? What do I even believe anymore? So a lot of what I do with my clients is help them to get clear on who they really are, what they really want, and how to get it. Because what you want and what I want could be two completely different things. And if we've never sat down and thought about it, how do we ever expect to get there?
I totally agree. No, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, so give me a feel for how does it work? Is it like a therapy session? Would I be seeing you for an hour or 50 minutes? Am I seeing you, at certain times? Just how does it kind of work over, what's a course of treatment per se, or a course of sessions with you look like?
It's very similar to therapy. My sessions are 50 minutes long. And when I'm starting out with someone, I say, let's meet either every week or every other week, because we're trying to build momentum. Every week is obviously ideal. Every other week can work if people are more cost conscious or, have a more demanding schedule. I don't make people commit to packages or certain lengths of time, because I feel like, first of all, personal growth and healing is the journey of a lifetime. A lot of my clients will hit a goal and then they want to keep going. So it really just depends. If you're coming in with a very specific goal of okay, I want to build my business to X amount of dollars. Okay, well, we have something really tangible we can work toward, get you there. We know when we've achieved it. But most of my clients are more, well, I want to know who I am. I want to know who I want, kind of these more, nebulous type things.
Yep.
And then they start feeling better, they start getting success, and they continue to refine down the way.
Do you see any, just in general, any trends here? For instance, do you see like points in time in life where there's more reflection?
It's a great question. Yes, always around birthdays with a 0. Most of my clients are clustered around the birthdays with a 0.
I'll be calling you in January.
I think really around age 30, interestingly enough, a lot of people go through a major growth spurt. I think almost more so even than like 40, 50. So I do see a lot of people hovered around 30s. And then I also think the trends are if something has happened that has rattled your life, you've experienced some sort of major life transition, like a job loss, a health event, a breakup, a divorce, or you're sitting here and you're just saying, I'm really not very fulfilled. I don't really love my life. There's got to be more to life than this, but I don't know what that means. Those are the trends that I tend to see.
There seems, just in my mind, and I could be wrong on this, but it feels like there's more of an approachability with life coaching than maybe going to therapy.
I think so too. I get that a lot. And I think that's why a lot of people who are struggling with substances come to me first, because this isn't treatment. This isn't, I'm going to diagnose you with a disorder. And so I think that they're less intimidated by it. Funnily enough, actually, a lot of people don't actually tell me that they're struggling with a substance until we get more into it, which I mean, of course, in session 1, that would be helpful to know. But I do understand the need to build the trust, and I'm here for that. And I want people to feel comfortable. It doesn't even have to just be that. Sometimes people just wait to tell me huge news of things that happen to them because they need to know my vibe, who I am, that I'm not going to judge them, all those kinds of things.
Yep, absolutely. You kind of alluded to it when we first began, you finding your sense of purpose. Have you kind of walked a little bit of this walk that a lot of your people that work with you have
100%.
been through? Have you seen a life coach yourself? Did you
yes,
see one?
Absolutely. Yeah, I started with therapy because I had a trauma. I was robbed. And I had PTSD after that where I was waking up in the night screaming, like I was so scared. And so that put me into therapy. And then when I was working with my therapist and we moved through that, my grandfather passed away, so we worked through that grief. And then I was like, okay, so I don't love my career path. What should I do? And I'm single and don't want to be. What should I do? And she was like, well, this is really like we've worked through the things, the traumas that you had and wanted to work through. And I felt like we kept hitting a wall. And then, because she'd be like, well, for me, this was my experience. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but she was very much a past-focused therapist. And so it's like, well, when I was a kid, I wasn't worried about a job. I wasn't worried about a breakup. I don't know where I'm going. And then she was like, have you ever thought about seeing a life coach? P.S. Have you ever thought about becoming a life coach? And that's when things really started to click for me because I moved through those traumas I had. But then I was like, well, yay, now what? I want all these other things.
Okay, give me a feel for, I'm kind of envisioning this as you're talking to me. Give me a feel for how you're getting people to find maybe their sense of purpose, which I think is really important. I even in my own life, being able to wake up and feel like I'm on the march with a sense of purpose. And that can be a lot of different things.
Definitely.
Trying to be the best father you can be,
Absolutely.
the best husband you can be. But then your work is really an important part of everybody's life. And, if you're miserable in your job, I think it probably makes everything miserable. But if you feel like you have a sense of purpose in what you're putting your energy and your mind to, I think it can be so much more fulfilling.
Absolutely.
So how do you take somebody that's just unsure? And I'm envisioning, people maybe that have been in a career for a while that just say, I don't think this is for me, but I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. But I don't, can you help them get there? And then also young people, interview a lot of young people coming out. We're all different generations, raised by different generations. And I hear a lot, particularly from young people, that they're looking for a sense of purpose. People that want to come work in inner health, usually it's because they feel like they have a real passion for wanting to try to help people. And they feel like the mission that we're on is something they can align with, so they attach some purpose to it. But in what you do, how do you how do you find that? Like, how do you do some self-discovery with these people to find that?
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head with all of this. I honestly think one of the most positive things to come from social media is that things like finding your passion and purpose and healing, therapy, self-care, all those things have become buzz topics. So these younger people are much more open to it than even people our age.
That's right.
So I think that that's been a big positive here. And you also hit the nail on the head with career and relationships and general life dissatisfaction are the top 3 reasons people seek me out. I think COVID woke everybody up for the most part in a lot of ways, in that we started to realize, wow, everything can change on a dime. Life is short. I don't want to keep living it this way. So I think we're in such a cool time to help people connect to their purpose and their passion. Really, there's a lot that goes into this, but for the sake of time, what my favorite thing to do with my clients is to help them, because I really believe we all have the answers we're seeking. They're just buried underneath our limiting beliefs, our trauma, the expectations of our parents, the expectations of society, all that kind of stuff. I really tell my clients, just start to follow the sparks. And by sparks, I say the sparks of joy, the sparks of curiosity. Follow anything that feels good, because there are anything that feels good and reason, right? We want to be healthy and safe and all the things. But a lot of times people talk themselves out of things instead of into things. And if you're drawn to something, even if it makes no sense why you're drawn to it, I say yes. Go, because there is some sort of answer there that is going to give us a massive clue to help us uncover your next steps.
Yep. Now, do you run into individuals that listen to that and then they bring, say, maybe they have some faith in their life to the table, and they say, help me balance this with being prayerful, trying to find my sense of purpose. How do you navigate those waters?
That is honestly the best, because if they have faith, this is going to be so much easier. If they have a strong religious foundation, this is going to be so much easier. So I really meet the person where they are. And, if they use the word God, I'll use the word God. If to them that's a loaded term, then I'll say universe. All of my clients, I've never had anybody that didn't believe in something, even if they believed in just energetics. Everyone has always believed in something being bigger than them. And so I think that makes it very helpful, because you kind of start to see, well, I'm co-creating. It's not all on me. And if we're using the word God gave us gifts for a reason, and he wants us to use them.
Yep.
And so I think that's very motivating to people.
I would totally agree. So the word manifesting, do you talk about that?
We do talk about manifesting. So I do feel like manifesting can be a little woo-woo. So let me bring it down to earth a little.
Okay.
Really what manifesting is you become it before you get it. So if I want to be a wife, I become a wife before I have a husband. If I want to be a business owner, I act like a business owner before I have a business. You start to show up as if you already have it. That changes how you're being. It's so much less about what you're doing. That's what manifesting is. It's about being.
That makes total sense. And by virtue of doing that, you become
exactly
what you're trying to be, right?
Exactly.
And do you feel like, just in the world we live, because there is an energy. I mean, people give off an energy, and people
100%.
are attracted to different types of energy. It's like the older I get, the more I realize that negativity attaches to negativity. Positivity, people that are very positive tend to gravitate positive people into their world.
Totally.
And opportunities just sort of open up.
They do.
And so have you noticed, just in working in your life or with your the patients you work with, have they experienced some of that?
Absolutely. And I can watch someone's energy change in session based on my energy. I will hold the energy high, even if they're stressed out, they're upset about something, and I will watch them match me. To your point, if you walk into a room and you get this vibe of like, whoa, like that person, he's giving me the creeps. It's like, we don't know why. He could look totally normal. He could be totally pleasant, but you have to trust that. People feel things. Funnily enough, my old therapist, one of her parents was an alcoholic, and she said that she could walk into any room of 100 people, there could be one alcoholic in there, and she would be drawn to that person.
So is this the sixth sense that we're talking about?
I think
the
so.
ability
I think
to
it's
pick
intuition.
up on this?
It's intuition, which I think, in my personal opinion, is a connection to the divine, whatever that means to you.
Me too. I believe that. So it's not something maybe you're born with it.
I think we are, and I think it gets buried. I think if you look at children, like they are way more connected to it. But you go through trauma, you're told, especially, women are a lot of told when you're a kid, like, oh, you're too emotional. Like, just what are you thinking? That's illogical. So people learn to really suppress these things. And I think we all have it. It just gets buried. And I'll be honest, I fall out of it all the time. Life gets busy, demanding. It's like you're like, okay, I have to clean and I have to cook and I have to do this and I have to do that. And then it's like, ugh, I feel so gross. What's going on? Why are things not happening for me? And it's like, oh, I lost it.
So maybe there's becoming very conscious of your feelings, right?
Yeah.
Not slipping so easily back into those treaded ways of reacting to situations, becoming real conscious of your feelings, which are probably based on your thoughts at that moment, right? Your inner thoughts.
You want to know something crazy? So I did this nervous system training recently, and I had never heard this before in all the trainings I've done. They said that your nervous system actually feels it, then generates the thought, then generates a feeling. And I was like,
that's fascinating.
My mind is absolutely blown. Like your nervous system knows it before your conscious mind knows it, which then does create the feeling. So you are picking up on things, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
So when do you be able to get control of that? Is it once it enters the thought? Is that where you try?
Depends on the person, I think. I mean, I think with anything, it's being aware. But I think if we're speaking about someone who's been dealing with substance abuse or someone that's gone through a lot of trauma, they're very disconnected from their bodies.
Yep.
They tend to be very dissociated. They're trying to numb. They're trying to escape. So they have a difficult time identifying, I feel happy. I feel hungry. Those kind of things are harder because they're so disconnected.
Yep.
So a lot of what I'm doing with my clients is just bringing them back to their bodies and saying like, okay, sitting in this room, like, how do you feel right now? Do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Do you feel thirsty? Do you feel hungry? Can you smell something? Like, what do you feel a breeze? Just come back. And it's amazing. When people come back to their bodies, I mean, I have seen things that really defy logic.
I believe it. Okay, so let's talk about, as it relates to addiction, substance abuse, going through treatment, what are the distinguishments between life coaching and sober coaching? Because in our space, over the years, I feel like there's been a growth of sober coaches. And quite honestly, it feels very murky to me. It feels like I kind of wonder what's really the education, professional requirements around this that qualifies often a lot of these sober coaches to be sober coaches. From a distance, it looks to me like it's a lot of individuals that have been through treatment that then got better a certain way, and therefore they want to be coaches, not necessarily therapists, but coaches, helping people kind of get on the path that more or less probably got them better. And I'm trying to understand in this world of coaching, what is really, in your mind, what are the differences between a sober coach and a life coach?
First of all, you're spot on with something that really irritates me about the field of life coaching is that it's less regulated. So there's pros and cons to everything, right? Two things can be true at once. And it is a pro that coaching is less regulated because I am able to be a lot more direct with my clients. Like I say things in session that a therapist could never say because they're so regulated, and I can coach across state lines, which therapists cannot do. So I do think that oftentimes well-meaning people want to call themselves a coach and based on what they've gone through. So, and I'm sure look, this is not a blanket statement because not every single sober coach is this way.
Sure.
I'm certain some of them have gotten certifications, but I more look at it like it's a mentor and like an AA type space. It is someone who has been through it and they're here to hold you accountable to remaining sober, but they are in their lens, to your point. This is what I did. This is what you do.
Right.
That is not what I do. What I did or do or don't do is irrelevant. I'm trying to meet the person where they are and help them to come up with their own answers because what works for them and me and you and everybody else could be 200 million different things. I also think sober coaching is so niched. Like, to me, that's just like, okay, we're going to talk about your sobriety. Life coaching is, okay, yeah, I want to, if you're having cravings or you're worried about your sobriety, or you're going, like a lot of times, they get out of the facility, they go into the world, they get invited to a party. They get invited to an event. There's going to be alcohol there or other substances there. How am I going to show up? What is my plan? Like, so that's a piece of this, but the bigger piece is, who am I now? What do I want? How am I feeling my day to day? Where am I going?
I couldn't agree more. I think so much of, yes, I think the life coaching, the world that you're in fits really nicely with the types of patients that we serve, because they've gone through a transformation, more or less, in their life, and their families have too.
Yes.
So there is a little bit of an identity around, like, who am I now, and what does the rest of my life look like? Being sober, having a new outlook on life. And therapy, maintaining therapy ongoing in an outpatient world, I think is essential. I think it's really important to continue that. Life coaching, I think, complements it more than just the sober coaching world. Now, what I'm saying will probably, people might not fully appreciate that. I just feel like so much of the sober coaching world is really full of a lot of people that have been through treatment, just trying to help people that have come out of treatment. And since we started Inner Health, this was 17 years ago, one of the things that we took a lot of arrows in the back on this when we opened. You can probably imagine, I think you and I talked in some of the middays when we were doing this, which was, in the whole behavioral health space, addiction has always underperformed. The results are abysmal. Matter of fact, I just met with a concierge doctor that I was reconnecting with a couple of years ago, and met with him actually just about a month ago. And we were talking about this new area, which you and I will hit on here in a moment, around functional psychiatry, and bringing more of the idea that what goes on in the body actually affects the mind, and we need to be looking at this in totality. And he made a really interesting statement. He said, thank goodness. He goes, because so much of psychiatry and addiction just doesn't work.
I agree.
And, over the years and looking at this, I understand why that reputation has followed, because there has been little to no advancement in the space. There's nothing wrong with the AA model. We took a lot of arrows in the back for not building our whole program around it, but it's great accountability. It's great support. It's not treatment.
Yeah, it's a group.
That's right.
It's a community to help you with communal support, which is very important.
Right. But there's real treatment involved in this. There's real medical issues. There's real therapeutic issues. There's real traumas that have been going on. There's real family systems issues. There's real dual diagnosis that needs to be dealt with, both psychiatrically and therapeutically.
Absolutely.
And you have to do it in a setting and in an environment that can be conducive to healing, and it takes time. So that's what we call treatment. I think life coaching really complements this area quite well.
I think it does too. I have a client who is a recovering alcoholic, and he has loved the AA world. He also has me and a psychiatrist and a trauma therapist, and did spend some time in a facility. So he is hitting all the angles, and sometimes he'll tell me, I went to this AA meeting and I didn't relate to the people there because they're still at this point or this is happening. And I always jokingly tell them, give them my number. Like, I will help them move faster because they're stuck. And that is the thing. I'm trained to get people unstuck. A therapist is trained to get people unstuck. And I also know what to look for. I don't diagnose, but I know when it's, hey, we need to bring in a psychiatrist here. There's a bigger picture going on. Hey, this thing that happened to you is extremely traumatizing. And we're still there. And we've just got to clean that up a bit so that we can move forward. So let's bring someone in to clean that up for you so that we can go forward.
Yep.
It's, to your point, everybody wants, Amazon Prime healing, everything yesterday.
That's right.
This is why I always say personal growth and healing is the journey of a lifetime. If you're not healing and growing, you're probably dead.
That's right.
So you're not living. Right. That's for sure.
That's right.
So
it takes time, and it's an ongoing journey. And people that come to us at the residential level, they're often in a pretty serious situation with their home, with their work, with their health. So we try to do what we can. The most important elements of what we call the treatment part is like building the foundation is what we call residential treatment. And over about a 4 to 7 week period of time, you can do a lot of real heavy lifting.
Yes.
That then you can build a house of recovery.
Exactly.
Upon. And it just takes time. I look at our treatment space and how it's changed over the last 17 years, and I jokingly say that our space is the tail wags the dog. It is whatever insurance is reimbursing is what treatment providers will provide. So the soup du jour now is let's do the lowest cost of care where you get people detoxed and into outpatient as quickly as possible. And I know, owners of facilities, people that have been through these treatments before, it doesn't give them the time that they need to really reset.
It doesn't. It just doesn't. I mean, okay, it always takes a lot less time to get into a hole than out of a hole. Like, it takes, from the average person, a lot less time to go $50,000 in debt than to get $50,000 out of debt. So the people who are coming to the ranch are usually at their rock bottom.
That's right.
The people that are coming to me are usually one step away from rock bottom.
Very true.
Now, everybody's rock bottom looks different, but I'm always trying to say, like, oh, please, like, let's not lose it all. Let's not go all the way in the hole, because it takes time to climb out. So if you think about growth and healing as, okay, I've got to repay $50,000, like, how long would that take you?
Right.
Like, manage expectations. And I think there's a lot when people start feeling better, they get a lot more excited about this, because then they're like, oh, well, I'm seeing changes. I feel better. What else can we do here? How else could I feel? So, you got to give it a minute to get there. But I know for me, a lot of my clients tell me they feel better really early on. And I think a lot of it's because I'm listening.
That's right.
And I'm here with you. Like, you are not alone. Doing all of this alone is awful.
Absolutely. You need somebody.
You do.
People need people.
And people that are not their parents or their loved ones, or, people that are too close to the situation.
Absolutely. A little bit of objectivity from a professional can go a long ways. Okay, just listening to you, do you work with families? Or is it just primarily individuals?
So
how does that work?
What I would do, I have worked with families, yes, but I work with them more in an individual setting. We can come together when we need to come together, but usually in the world that I've been in, it's better to split it all up because everybody has their own things going on. So if you think, say that a son enters health. Well, the mom has played a role in all of this for years. Now she has to say, okay, well, if my son is sober, who am I now? How do I show up with him now? And look at her role in all of these things. And this can go with anything, even couples. I don't ever do couples together. I will talk to you one-on-one, but so many of the things are you have to work through your own stuff so that you can show up in any relationship as a healthy person.
So in lieu of doing like couples therapy, couples could come see you on an individual basis.
Exactly.
From a coaching perspective.
Exactly. A lot of what I do too is empowerment. So I want to empower people to have conversations with whoever it be, a loved one, a boss, whoever, that in a way that feels empowering to them. Like, I don't want to do it for you. I'm not always going to be here. I'm seeing you for 50 minutes once a week. I want you to feel like no matter what people say to me, no matter what is coming my way, I have got this.
In general, what are the types of people you're working with? You working with people that are executives, business owners, moms, dads, everything in between?
I mean, first of all, my clients are amazing. They really are. They blow my mind, these people. The things that they've been through and come out the other side, the things that they've built, it motivates me. Like, they inspire me. And yes, it's really a wide spectrum of people. A lot of business owners, a lot of single people, a lot of burned out executives, I don't get a lot of people who are having marital problems of like, help me work it out. Usually they come to me and are like, oh gosh, this has gotten really bad. I don't know. Like, they're more at a rock bottom place in a relationship, and they're kind of figuring out, do I stay or do I go kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, you said you see these people in person?
Virtually. I'm
Virtually.
100% virtual. Everybody
All virtual.
loves the virtual.
Okay. So
I had an office and I got rid of it.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm just curious, your opinion on this. Do you think it's effective?
I do. I think it's actually equally, it really depends on the person, right? Okay, it's personal preference. But in my opinion, it's equally effective as someone who's been in office and virtual. I actually find, now these are my clients, but they tend to open up more when they're comfortable at home, in their own environment with their dog, laying in the bed, whatever it is, I can get more out of them. And if you think about it, if you're in an office and you're crying all session, then you have to walk out into a crowded lobby. You have to drive home. You're crying. I remember people being like, I cried the whole way home. And I'm like, oh gosh. Like, did you get, are you driving safe? Is everything okay? So I do think it's personal preference. I think if it's a child, they need to be in person.
Yep.
But I think for most adults in today's world, I think virtual is totally fine.
It's gotten extremely popular. I've talked to countless providers that have moved their entire practices online.
That's what I did. I started out kind of 50-50. And people would cancel their in-persons all the time and be like, can we just do virtual?
Yep.
So I was like, why am I paying for this office?
So I'm curious what you think about this, but in our particular space, dealing with substance abuse and coming out of residential treatment, I noticed, even with our therapist in the outpatient world, they were wanting to see their patients in person. And I think part of it, as you know, a part of this journey in having successful recovery is you got to have a little bit of accountability in there. And a lot of our patients have, they're pretty clever and they've gotten good at hiding this. They don't want to, but they've had to in their own way of surviving through their use. And so it's an objective way to hold some accountability. Is you gotta occasionally lay eyes on somebody. How are they dressed? How are they looking? How are they presenting?
Yeah.
Let's drug test you. We got to make sure you're saying what
that's a little different. I also think life coaching has always been a heavy virtual focus. Therapy hasn't. Therapy really became more virtual during COVID. So
That's right.
When I was trained, I was really trained on more of a virtual model. So it could partially be newer to therapists. Now, for me, like the other day, I had a session with a lady, not an addict, but has bouts of depression. And she sure was at 1 p.m. in her pajamas in bed. Red flag.
Red flag.
So,
absolutely.
And you can also sometimes see around like, hey, what is that? What is that over there? People are always going to try to pull it fast. I had in-person people show up. I had a guy come once and he had been doing cocaine all morning and came to our session in person, drove there.
Oh, wow.
Kind of horrific. Yep. So, it can go either way. I think a lot of the therapists, and I think I myself, can usually pick up if something is off.
There's some professional discretion that's in there.
Yeah.
Right? It's our patients, they want to use the virtual platform for sure. It's convenient. It's easier.
Yeah.
We try to balance it. If you almost kind of earn it a little bit. Let's make sure.
You got to feel it out. You got to know the person. Like when the guy that came in doing the cocaine, it's not like you smell the cocaine, right? His eyes, he was just like, and I was like, why are your eyes open so wide? And he goes, I had a lot of coffee. And I was like, really? What was in that coffee?
A lot of coffee.
Because I had a lot of coffee too. I'm blinking.
All right. So you've been through this journey. Now what are you, 7 years into this now? 6 years?
Yeah, 6 years in.
6 years.
Yeah, time flies.
Where do you see it kind of going here over the
That's
next
a great question.
future?
I'm actually meeting with a coach on Wednesday to actually talk more about that because I feel like I'm at a point, like a growth point here. I still love taking one-on-one. That's one-on-one is my favorite.
Can you retain you work with only so many amount of people? Like what would be like a caseload, if you will, that you work with?
So I usually see about 18 people a week.
Okay.
I would like to be closer to 25. So I still have room to grow. This gives me life. People say, oh my gosh, 25, you're going to be so tired. And I'm like, what? I love this. Like this gives me life. So I'm still growing in the one-on-one. I'm very lucky in that a lot of my clients, they're bought in. So they're consistent, they're showing up, they're doing the work, all that kind of stuff. I would like to, at some point, offer some more kind of independent type courses. People sometimes they're nervous to jump into this. So I think having independent courses might be nice for those people so they can start getting a taste, getting some healing, getting some growth. But I'm not in front of them.
Sure.
Might make it more comfortable for them.
So you're looking at some other ways that you can kind of take your skill set and parlay them, right?
I'd like to help as many people as possible. So it's figuring out what that looks like. Because I do really believe in this, and I do feel like God gave me a gift. I really feel like this is what I was meant to be doing. Like I can feel it in my soul, and I want to sometimes shout it from the rooftops of like, I can help you.
I remember the first time we met. I remember thinking when you were kind of walking me through the journey you talked about earlier and getting to where you're at, I was thinking to myself, I bet you she's going to be really good at this.
Thank you.
There's an energy. You're passionate about it. You've applied yourself. A lot of hard work to get to where you're at. So you've learned a lot, gone through a lot of professional courses, and you've done a really remarkable job just following your journey over the last couple of years. I can see why you're doing as well as you are.
Well, thank you. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate. And I just hope to make an impact in people's lives. I mean, when you are living life authentically in a way that feels good to you, you're thriving and you're helping other people do the same. Like, I wish everyone would do it.
I agree. Part of that, learning to evolve. It's like, I was thinking as you and I sat down, I think, and had coffee. It's probably been a little while, maybe a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you that one of the areas that we had wanted to move into was trying to expand out of how traditional psychiatry has always been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time just trying to self-learn on this and looking at a variety of concierge doctors. Actually, what teed me off on this was going through COVID, quite honestly, and watching the array of doctors and how they responded to people that were sick, that had caught the virus. And it was amazing to me that so many of the concierge physicians that we work with that are local here, they're great doctors, they were treating this so effectively. And it just made me think, what are they doing that other doctors are not? It's probably a story for another podcast, by the way. But what it led me to believe is looking at, okay, these concierge doctors are enabled to, one, spend the time with their patients that they need to, and two, they're able to run the diagnostics that allow them to really pinpoint the treatments. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of made me think, why don't we do this in psychiatry? Mm-hmm. We don't, historically, you don't go see a psychiatrist and have any labs done or run or any feedback.
I mean, traditionally you see a psychiatrist for 10 minutes and you get a prescription and walk out the door. I actually know a lot of people who have psychiatrists that don't even require them to speak to somebody, which honestly blows my mind because their sessions are 10 to 30 minutes. I cannot get anywhere with anybody in 10 to 30 minutes.
That's right.
So, yeah. And I had a client who actually was on a certain anti-anxiety medication for years. It was not working. I mean, when she came to me, I was like, girl, we got problems. And she was on like the highest dose. She went to a functional psychiatrist. They did the testing and they told her, like, this one doesn't align with your body chemistry.
That's right.
Switched her night and day.
That's right.
Different person.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to me. So much of this area is actually pretty simple. It's almost like basic medicine. And we did a podcast just a couple of weeks ago on this subject, and it's almost like dusting off the old playbook. A lot of the essentials really apply to today. It's just we need an environment where the doctors are learned in this and they're able to do it with their patients. But the essence of it is being able to understand that each of us have a unique biochemistry. And those unique biomarkers, which we test for about 200 to 250. We launched this in March of this year, and it's been absolutely fascinating to go through because we are discovering things that we never saw before with our patients. And more importantly, they're able to actually see answers in their own biology about why, not just, treating the symptom, but why do they have the symptoms?
Exactly. I also think that's such a cool thing to do in conjunction with the ranch. I had a client go through, so I'm very familiar with all of it. And, he never worked out. Suddenly he's doing yoga, meditation with you guys. He's thinking about what he's eating. He was diabetic and he wasn't treating it at all, and the drinking and all that on top of that. I think that people are really waking up to, if I want to be healthy, I have to look at all the things.
Absolutely.
Like, I can't just work out and be healthy if my mind is a hot mess. There's room for everything. And I think that I'm so excited to see where all this goes.
I am too. And I feel like, as we enter this year, not a left or right issue, but with the administration, I feel like you're getting a little bit of a tailwind. People are going to shine a light on some areas that they haven't shined a light on.
The light needs to be shined.
Yes.
I mean, it just needs to be shined. If you're telling me that you're depressed all the time, it's like, okay, when is the last time you went outside? When is the last time you worked out? I'm not saying that this is going to fix everything if you just, sit outside for 30 minutes and go work out, but let's look at what these habits are here. And I understand it's hard. See, this is where it's like I come in too to help these people, hold them accountable. Because everybody's like, well, I don't work out. And then they want to go from never having worked out to working out 7 days a week. That's unrealistic.
That's right. But it's taking all of those things together. Exactly. And one of the things that, I've come to really appreciate is it's not at the exclusion of traditional Western medicine.
Absolutely
like
not.
it
It's
has
all of
both
it.
of them have a seat at the table. Matter of fact, it's almost a 1 + 1 = 3 type of scenario.
I agree.
So if you can understand what's really going on with this person, not just treat the symptom, but let's go back a step or two and understand the root cause of those symptoms, which we're finding it's usually 5 to 7 different biomarkers that we can repair in a variety of ways over the course of treatment that then allow their medications to be much more impactful. And then eventually, downstream, if they can wean off or have a lower dosage of it so they're not so dependent upon it into
That's what
perpetuity.
I always think too. It's like, okay, well, let's make your natural base level happier, more even keeled, more regulated, so that you're not so reliant on booze, drugs, meds, whatever.
Exactly. So I've just thinking about this subject, what we're launching, your area of practice, I think life coaching plays a real important role because so much of being, there's a part of functional psychiatry where we're going to diagnose and give you the treatment
Yes.
plan, but then there's some accountability that comes with
There
it.
is. Like, what does this mean now?
Right.
How do I do this?
And
Who's
there's-
going to help me do this?
Exactly. And there's work to it. And I feel like kind of the coaching, the goal setting, the checking in, making sure you're really as compliant as you can be. Nobody's going to be perfect, but
No.
making sure you're as compliant as you can be with this, then in due time, you're going to feel the real benefits of all of this.
Totally agree. I think it's so cool. I'm so excited to see where all this goes.
I am too. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure
So much fun.
to have you.
Thank you for having me. I love this. I could talk about this all day.
Well, we will probably have you back. We're going to have a variety of subjects. And if people wanted to just have a chance to find you, how would they go about connecting?
So I'm very active on Instagram and social media in general. I'm Ashley the Life Coach, and my website is ashleythelifecoach.com, and I do offer a free consultation. So if people are hearing this, I would be, and are interested in learning more, check it out.
Awesome. Well, hey, Ashley, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It really has.
Thank you.